And just maybe to for a bit of a brief, I think Masapelo wasn't here in the previous session, so just to share how this works. So it's an hour-long conversation. I always like to frame these moments as a conversation, because in this world of systems change and so forth, I think we're always learning and kind of getting from other people's experiences and building on top of it. So it's always a very good conversation to be in and to tap into other people's experiences and how they view the world, the perspective, and so forth. So I just give a brief talk about this time we're talking about field work. But it's always very important to hear from you. I love hearing from what you've been participating in and the context that you've been involved and so forth. So this is how it works. So I'll give you the floor to just express yourselves. And yeah, if you don't want to unmute, you can always put on the chat, and I'm happy to look at it and we can have a big conversation. So at any moment, if you feel like sharing anything, just raise your hand and speak and so forth, and we can continue like that, shall we? Sounds good? Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Awesome.
Actually,
Nice. And welcome, Ashley, to the session. Nice to have you here. And nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, Yasmin.
Cool. So yeah, let's just jump in so we can have time to talk. And this is, you can see my screen, right? Yeah, great. Oh, my light.
yeah, we can see it.
Great. So let me get started with our agenda today. So just briefly, what happened in our last events of this community gathering format, then what is fieldwork and why it is important. Then I will just talk very, very briefly about something that I think it's very interesting to talk in this context, but it is somehow what I've been exploring in my own project and research in the master that I'm doing. So yeah, emergence, complexity, and budget cognition. And then the last part will be just to hear from you. So this is not going to take too long because yeah, it's great to tap into the collective intelligence in the room. So just very quickly, we started these community gatherings in March, if I'm not mistaken. So we've been doing once a month this format. And the first session, we talked about complex systems, what they are, some of the features of complex systems. Then the second session, we talked about collaboration and community building. And then last session, we talked about narrative and storytelling. And today we are building on this, on some of the topics that we've talked about before. And talking about fieldwork. So I always like to start with definitions and descriptions of what these words actually could mean. And then we can build from it, because I think it's a good foundation to start with. So I put all the references in the end, and I can have can give it to you afterwards. That's why these numbers here. But just 3 different definitions of fieldwork are a study that consists of practical activities that are done away from your school, college, and place of work, and the testing of scientific theories in real situations. These underlines are mine. And I would like to just pick up on that and hear from you as well. Second definition is fieldwork involves going to natural settings to understand people within that context. For example, understanding people in their everyday natural setting. And then the third definition could be fieldwork is the process of observing and collecting data about people, cultures, and natural environments. So I've highlighted from these descriptions what I thought it was very distinctive between the work that you do at home, research, and then you sit down, read a lot of stuff, and you gather some information, and the field work. And that's why this realm is very different and very important from, let's say, desk research and reading and so forth. So some features are, of course, field work being something that you do away from the place that you work every day, and you research and read your things and you think about stuff. So this is something separate, right? It's a different context. And a lot of these highlight the fact that it's real scenarios, real situations, everyday natural settings of the things that you are discussing and talking about. So this, and of course, the point here is to observe the happenings of the subject that you're interested in their natural settings, in an environment that it happens organically, without being you from a completely different space, a different context, observing and talking about the subject matter. And so this is a bit of the summary here. And I would like to ask you, why do you think this is important, if it is? First of all, let's say, why this could be an important thing to do, field work, and then how is it important? So do you have any experience of doing field work like that, going to somewhere else and researching in the real world kind of scenario, what you're studying or what you're researching? And if so, why do you make the effort to go somewhere else to do this research? So I'd like to hear from you, your experience. We can start possibly with, my thing's not working. Braden, if you'd like to jump in, why do you think this is important?
This is one of my, I would say, like one of my biggest pet peeves is like when theories sort of are standalone and they don't really have any basis in actual outcomes in real places, that it's hard to sort of demonstrate that. And so that's like in most of the work that I've done, it's not field work, and it's just very much like, even like in university, I feel like they put too much emphasis on sort of reading books and book learning and not enough of going out and doing, because like you're not actually testing what you're trying to do. And so like that's why for what the Collective Action Network is working on, it's based around the knowledge that we're going to get through case studies in specific contexts. So that's sort of, we're trying to find communities that are working on things in their own way and learning how new theories apply to them and work for them. And that will actually help to then feed the theory and improve the theory, which then goes on to inform the practice. And so it becomes a cycle, and it's like you don't want to limit yourself to just one way of thinking alone, but you want to constantly improve your understanding through like that cycle.
Right, okay, very good. Yeah, a lot of gems there. Before I dive into it, anyone else would like to share? Do you agree with Braden? Dr. Frew, go on.
For me, the importance of fieldwork is it gives you a first-hand experience of what you are investigating. You know, sometimes not everything is covered in the books or in the articles we read, and you cannot have the real feeling of what is on ground in what you're reading in the books or in papers. So when you go for a field work, you are able now to make better analysis, better judgment of a situation, because sometimes some things are under or overstated in books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, the aspect of highlighting some features and then not highlighting others that in real world scenarios could be the other way around, right? Or none of that. So that's extremely important. Thank you. Linda.
Yeah, thanks, Yasmin. What I want to say has already been said by others, but I just want to give a practical example from my experience, and this is very recent. So at Riasako, we've been working on a project to tackle youth unemployment, and it's called Youth at Work. We have had pilots like since 2022 up to now. And now we are at that stage where we are just taking all the learnings from our previous experiences and putting that together to come up with I can't really say new model, but it's a refined model based on our experience on the ground. So we're just learning from everything that we have done and then packaging that to inform the new model that we're coming up with. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. It's a good way to improve on models and frameworks and really getting into the applicability of what we are creating, right? So making sure that, going back to what Braden said, this cycle of you read and you go and observe and practice, and then that influences how the theory is made, and then you go and practice again and create this, let's say, upward cycle in a way that is extremely important to really understand what's going on, right? Because at the end of the day, that's somehow what we want to do through this exploration, through research, is trying to understand a bit of how the world works and what is happening, so then we can have better assessment on what to do in case that situation is presented again, or what not to do, right? So this is very key. Thank you, Linda. Arsene, Matapelo, Ashley, anything that you'd like to add, Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that my note is entirely different than the one here about finding community that are doing things in their own ways. But building on that, building on informing theory and firsthand experience and better judgment, I think all those things are very framed from the researcher's point of view, or what is they stand to gain from the fieldwork. I would just take that a step further in terms of like the opportunity to actually co-create knowledge with people. I guess not in all forms of fieldwork, but certainly I think we're talking more probably perhaps than ever about research not only in communities or in the field, but with communities. So yeah, I think that that's just a potential distinction to make as well.
Yes, super nice that you actually touched upon that. I think especially in the field of systems change, that we are trying to do things differently, right? And of course, influence what we can, but always understanding that there are a lot more going on than we can actually perceive. And the best way for us to gather a better grasp of the complexity that is out there is really co-creating and talking to people, asking for feedback and going back and testing it, and yeah, just working with the community, as you said, research with and not to, right? So that's super great. Thank you, Ashley. Wow, very good things in here, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Yasmin. Thanks. I actually wanted to comment on what Biden said earlier on informing theory. And that's very essential to me, because we all know that the way people design these theories emerge, been through field work but in a research kind of settings where you take 2 to 3 weeks work to sit with people through a survey or whatever, whichever way you administer it, get the feedback from people, and then use that to say this is the evidence, building the evidence or knowledge or evidence-based kind of findings to inform theory, which I found very relevant, and which is something that we set up as RIASA when we started in the beginning, was exactly to look more into project interventions, like Linda said, because I believe that through the project, which is a kind of a long-term intervention, like something that goes for over 1 year, it gives you more opportunities to really learn. And in the process of learning, you refine, you come up with new things. And to me, that's the parts that I feel like it's very crucial when we start thinking of informing policies or informing theories or refining even policies when we deal with, when we, like, for instance, if we're dealing with government department or whichever, government department in most cases. But in the field of research is also informing theories, like Braden was saying. So to me, that practicality of staying in a long time with the project or with the intervention and getting to learn more and really having, like long-term kind of interaction gives you that kind of richness that we all need. And when we are talking about fieldwork, the importance of fieldwork, I think the more we do those kind of intervention, and as we do at RIASA, like incorporating research in the process, the knowledge that comes from that process, then you package it in a way that now can inform future programmings, like Linda was saying.
Great. Yeah. What I hear from all of your it's here. What I hear from all your responses is that it's quite complementary and necessary to go back to the theory and to what it said, and then see if that's applicable in reality. So that's awesome, everyone. Thank you. I can give some space for us to continue this debate later on. But then as I think everything that I was hearing now is what I was reading, which kind of makes sense in what you're talking about. And I think this is a bit of this kind of field work sample, right? That I think I just did. So some things that I read that you literally just said, it was it's important because you gain an understanding of people's experiences within a context. And when we talk about complexity and systems thinking and all that, we really need to get that context right. Otherwise, we can just talk a lot about a lot of things, but then that thing is just really useful in one specific scenario, and then in other settings that may not work, and then we may question, why is that not working? Because we need to work with the context. So this is extremely important, and something that you put in your comments as well. Then it helps clarify and add depth to the emerging understanding about what is being observed. So this is quite important, and some of you mentioned the word perspective. And once we read some things, then we can get there one layer of what's going on, right? But as I think Dr. Freud mentioned, the feeling for the subject matter, the experience of being in a context is completely different than just reading about it. You may know a lot of stuff, but then when you go and experience that yourself, putting yourself in that context, then your understanding is completely different. So this is quite key in what I'm going to be sharing with you as well. And I think you mentioned loads of that. And then last point here is forces researchers to challenge their preconceptions and theoretical assumptions, as they come to face with the realities on the ground. And that's quite interesting, because sometimes we read a lot, and then when we go and see, there's nothing of what we read. It's completely different. So how can we build upon as well our own limitations and our own assumptions about what is right or wrong and so forth, and then facing the challenge, facing the real world scenario? It's a good way for us to and go outside our own limited box, our limited bubble, and then see with other eyes. So some points here that you've mentioned as well. So I think some ways to kind of summarize some of the ideas that we brought right here is in this kind of 3 concepts or 3 words that I of course, again, this is just my perspective, and I would love to hear what other words you could add to summarize some of the things that we mentioned. So first thing is that I really, really love this graphic. And again, the references are going to be at the end of the presentation. That this is, in a simple way, there's a lot going on here. And as you can see here, we have a pig. But of course, depending on who is or what is observing and perceiving this pig here, we have a completely different understanding of what we're actually seeing, right? What we are perceiving. So a pig is not a pig, right? A pig is a pig depending on who is seeing the pig and who's observing. So for example, for a wolf, it can be a food, it can be a source of nutrition. For veterinarians, for example, can be a patient or something to care for and to really understand its workings and how their body functions and so forth. And for others, you see it differently. And the word that we talked about before is this word emergence. And I think there's a lot of the emergence in when we look at a subject matter, when we look at something that we are trying to understand better. And there's a lot of things that actually come up. There's a lot of features that come up depending on whether you are in the more desk research or if you are in the field work. It's a completely different way of experiencing. It's a completely different way of observing what it's being here, what you're actually researching. And this emergence depends a lot on the perspectives that are taking place. So I like to think about the rainbow as an example, because the rainbow is not there, right? The rainbow, you can see the rainbow depending on the context that you are in. So in some ways you can see the rainbow, in some ways you can't see. If you are, some people, some kids like just trying to catch the rainbow as if it's something that you can actually grasp, and it's not exactly. So it's there's a bit of a magic aura kind of happening there. And this is really the emergence, what we are actually seeing. And in the same way that the pig is here depends on who is looking at it, right? So this is a topic that we talked about before, and I find this topic of emergence extremely fascinating. Then another topic here, of course, is complexity, and we mentioned this before. We can't really understand complex phenomena as a whole, right? We understand bits of it, and we try to understand a bit more of it as we bring more people together, as we collect data, as we go into the field and so forth. And these are ways for us to really make sense of the information that is out there in a way that it's useful for us, and in a way that we can grasp and we can make sense. So as we read, there are some things that are happening. There's the complexity summarized in some ways, but once we go and experience, there's so many more things that we have realized that we don't know. That is important to continue this feedback loop of researching, reading and applying, going to the field and back researching and so forth. So yeah, as Arsene was saying, this continuous learning process is key to this field of systems change. And lastly, the embodied cognition is, in a very summarized way, is a topic that I'm extremely interested about. And it brings the idea that cognition is not just decoding information from the outside, right? This is not how we perceive the world. This is a bit, but it's not just it. So once we look at the pig here, we're not just decoding information that comes from the pig and then we process it in our brains and then we kind of put it out what the answer is or the outputs of it. So the embodied cognition brings the idea that our bodies are not just added to the brain to make sense of the world. Our bodies are actually crucial and fundamental for us to perceive. So depending on where we stand, depending on our bodily functions and so forth, we are literally going to perceive the world differently. Therefore, so many perceptions and so many points of view, so many cultures and yes and no's and arguments and so forth, because we are literally seeing something different and perceiving something different. So the importance of field work as well is that we have an opportunity to leave our steady, let's say, desk and go and experience and move our bodies and test something out and feel it differently. So these are some words that I wanted to bring to you. And then just kind of 2 quotes to finish off, and then I'll pass it over to you. The complexity and the emergence of a phenomenon depends crucially on the observer and his body and brain. So once you're somewhere else in a different context, that makes a huge difference to observation and perception. And if the format of this information is changed, then complexity changes and the potential emergent phenomenon does not occur at all. So changing our physical bodies makes a big difference as well when the emergent phenomena that we are researching and so forth. The emergent phenomenon lives on the brain of the observer. It's constructed by his cognitive system. So yeah, this is just two quotes to kind of finish off this part. And yeah, I would like to hear from you. What do you think about these words? Do you resonate with any of those? Can you see that in the work that you do, or in case studies that you've participated in? And of course, what are some of the limitations of the field work as well? What have you been thinking as I go through these words here? So I'll pass it over to you. And I see Arsene has a comment here about power dynamics, which is massive. So you want to share what you're thinking about then?
Well, I saw Bryden has a hand. I'm happy to intervene after her.
Oh, thanks. So I guess embodied cognition, I guess it's like I guess it's a different, maybe it's a slightly different way of phrasing what I'm thinking about, but for me, it brings to mind the concepts that are really demonstrated through like mindfulness and meditation, where especially in like certain Buddhist practices, you learn about how like how your reality or how reality is all of these sensations, perceptions, and how much your own nature influences what you see and hear and do. But also the assumptions and the concepts that are imposed from external sources, where you're trained to think a certain way, like having an internal monologue, for instance, or like instead of just processing raw unfiltered data and sort of experiencing that, you have a specific lens through which you're sort of interpreting things. Even the concept of like the self as something that's separate from the rest of the universe, but like the idea that like you're the universe experiencing itself and that you're just an extension of that. So like that's kind of what it made me think about, is like that sort of acknowledgement of like you are the broader system, the broader system is you, and how that influences like the your own limitations and how you can perceive it, but also like by like sort of by extension how you can understand the broader system through understanding of yourself.
Yeah,
Sorry.
a lot of things.
Much.
No, a lot of things there. Thank you, Braden. Yeah, I think a lot of the things that we talk about, in my perception anyway, but of course I would like to hear what you think. A lot of the names that we give to a lot of the experiences and a lot of the research that is taking place now is something that is already known by other communities and societies and populations, but now it's just starting to have some realm in the scientific world, right? So as you're saying, embodied mindfulness and all these kind of Buddhist practices and so forth, they are really about in some ways, right, emptying your mind, or your kind of that monkey mind that a lot of people say, a lot of these thoughts and anxious concerns that are happening, so you can be present, so you can feel what is happening right here, right now, right? And because of our way of living, we need to be always concerned about what's going to happen then, and kind of organize ourselves to be prepared for something if something happens. And we need to think about the family, we need to think about the work, we need to think about this and that, and oh my God, and all this. We just kind of put a lot of information into us, and we don't give space just to be and to feel what is happening now. So as you're saying, the embodied cognition kind of theory is the more scientific and philosophical explanation of our bodies matter in making sense of reality, as much as our thinking, as much of our I don't know, our oh my God, I really wish this could happen, and reflections and so forth. It is as important. So we have this hierarchy of the brain first and then the rest, right? Of making sense of the world, but it's not like that. So yeah, it's very good way that you put there, bringing mindfulness and Buddhist practices as a way to tune into our environment, and getting a lot of sense about what's going on just by tuning in with our bodies. So that's very good. Thank you. Linda.
Yeah, thanks, Yasmin. Thanks, Braden, for your contribution there. I was just thinking about like my own experience. Usually, I try to think about these things based on what I've experienced. And one thing that I've noticed, like as a facilitator, right, I find myself with different types of audience, different people, different context. And usually yes, we do have guides, like for the workshops that we conduct, for the training and all of that, we do have guides. But I also kind of take my time to feel the environment, to feel the vibe of the people that you're working with. And then what I usually do is I kind of add in some other activities that can sort of deal with that kind of vibe that I'm feeling with the participants. So I'll give an example. Yeah, with our Youth at Work project again. Yeah, I have other examples for other projects, but this one is quite yeah, I feel like it's more relevant. So we working with young people in South Africa and in Kenya, and notice that these are two different groups altogether. The way that the socialization, the context, the challenges that they face, they may be the same when you list them, but the way they experience those things is totally different. So when we did the training in South Africa, we had some activities that we were doing with the teams, but when we went to Kenya, we had to change those activities because of the level of interaction and the level of motivation and the level of I don't know how to put it, aptitudeness of the participants. So those are people that you need to really engage. Like you need to show them why you're there and why they have to give you their time. You need to prove to them that you are worth. So then that gave me, like, I felt that in the beginning of the conversation, like talking to them and facilitating a few things, then I had to quickly, change some of the things that we're doing so that they can see the value of the workshop. That same workshop was of value to South African participants, but in Kenya, it was a different ball game altogether. So I think for me, it's that embodied like cognition and embedding yourself in the environment and working with it might sound not academic or not scientific, but I feel like we ignore much of how we feel, yet it's got an impact on what we're actually doing. So yeah, that's just an example that I thought yeah, could be relevant.
Nice, yeah. So that expression of the gut feeling, right? That's something that a lot of people just kind of push away and don't really do these things. I do thinking and I do academic and I do everything else, but I don't really tune into the gut feeling. And this is a lot. So listening to the gut feeling is it has a lot of information that we are not aware of through this kind of thinking brain. So a lot of people now are going back to tune into your gut feelings and so forth, because there's a lot that is not said that makes a lot of sense, because again, the complexity of the world is big and we cannot grasp everything that is happening around us. So yeah, our bodies can be quite important source of information in that way. So I will just give the floor to Dr. Fru and then Arsen.
Yeah, for me, based on the experience with field work, one thing we should have in mind when we are going to field work is the ability to adapt. Because you might be going to a field work with a mindset, and when you get on ground, what you see, it's quite different from the plans you have. So always have that mindset to adapt when you're going for field work. And also because sometimes you might be going to an environment and then you realize, oh, these people are speaking a different language to what I'm speaking. So always have that in mind, like always have your background checks first to make sure that there's someone who can understand you. Because at the end of the day, if you go somewhere for field work and the people cannot understand you, then you'll be worse off than better off. So those are some of the experiences that I had when it comes to field work.
Nice, nice, very good. So, do you have any quick examples that you can share with us of things that you kind of went through and you, oh my God, this is not what I expected, and having to adapt and so forth?
So like there was this survey that we were doing on obesity, and we had to do that survey in Langa and I think there's Kailicha. Now it's a household survey, and then now when you go, like when we went there the first time, like being in South Africa, there's a high expectation that almost everyone can understand basic English, right? But now we went to a household where no one could understand us. Then now we needed to come back and look for someone who understands closer to be able now to go back and do our questionnaires. So those are some of the bottlenecks that you will find when you're doing field work.
Nice, yeah. The assumptions that we carry with ourselves, and then we're confronted with something that, no, it's not what I thought, and just kind of going back. And yeah, I think, as you're saying, having the support from others, extremely important, and people that can resonate with you, and in some ways create some type of a bridge, as you can say, between what you are thinking and then what you're actually experiencing, and that can create some type of a cognitive dissonance, right? People can find a very hard time to conciliate both. So yeah, having more people that, as I understand what you're speaking, that can resonate with you, but then can support making that bridge to the what is actually happening in the world. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is.
Nice. Great. So Arsene, and then I'll pass it over to Ashley.
Yeah, thanks, Yasmin, and thanks everyone. For those who have shared their thoughts and experience about the work. Yasmin, I just wanted to go back to when you were presenting, when you gave the example of how we see things. You were talking about that diagram that you show of the wolf, and when you were saying that this can look like food for this animal and can mean something else. And it goes back to, if you think about the work of systems change. Yes, exactly. This is exactly the work of systems change, and what I feel like we've been struggling as practitioners that are working in the field, in the social sector space in general. And I need researchers, academics, NGO practitioners, those that are more interested in changing the conditions or transforming the conditions of our people. So this kind of image is a graphic is a very strong representation of our work, and and a reflection of our work as practitioners that are working towards systems change. And as you were talking through this diagram, I was again reflecting, and I remembered, well, Linda probably would be the best one to talk about this, but she didn't mention it. I thought that's what she was going to talk about when she was speaking. When they did the workshop with Matapelo in the DRC, there is a project that we're working on thinking of working with civil society organizations that are working in the democratic governance space, bringing them together to a research project to understand the challenges that they are facing currently, and to those challenges, start imagining the future scenarios that they can build for them to survive in the next 20 years. So there was a strategic foresight workshop that we did here in South Africa, but in South Africa, in Cape Town, it was facilitated by myself, but in the DRC, it was Lyndon Matapelo and other colleagues. So what emerged from what they told me when I wasn't there, but they told me that when that's the very first exercise they started with was the Polak game, which is basically similar to reflexivity, the theory of reflexive thinking, systems thinking for those who are familiar with this concept, which is really about finding strategies to question our own attitude or thoughts, or processes, or even behaviors, values, and assumptions that we have as people. So it puts you as a person to challenge yourself how you think, and in reflexive thinking now, how that influences the world that you create out there. So reflexivity or reflexive thinking, we know, like what you think and how it determines the world that out there. And through that exercises they were doing, what I was told by Linda is that people came with different perspectives or ideas about what they thought was right for them to do their work in advancing democratic governance space in the DRC. What they believe strongly was the only one position they should. But when we took them to that exercise,
So interesting, though. Thought.
sorry, I don't know what happened. I don't know what's
You're
that.
back.
So then when they took them to that exercise, the people that came with a strong opinion about certain thing after the exercise felt challenged themselves, and without anybody having to force them to shift their thinking, they felt the need to see things differently. And to me, that is very essential, because the work of systems change is really about understanding, especially like you said, you gave the two examples, Yasmin. You started by talking about emergence, and you spoke about complexity. Everything that we deal with, we have to understand is we're working in a complex world. But for you to navigate well and surface the challenges or the intervention or the transformation you want to drive, you need to also acknowledge the different perspectives, be it in the room where you are working, or you as an individual. What you believe can be totally different with the reality out there. And that's, to me, is very essential. And the work that we do more and more here at RIASA is where we start more. It's like from that, where we start building awareness. The awareness raising is really about challenging our belief, the way we think, our thought processes, the way we make decisions even, and getting to understand that there are different perspectives out there, that you don't necessarily have to focus on one thing. You have to, as a systems thinker, you have to be able to zoom out, from the systems that you're intervening, look at things from a holistic view. And that will allow you to be able to make informed decisions. And so that's the comments that I wanted to make. Thanks.
That's very, very good points there, and perspectives, and challenging ourselves is something that it's difficult. It's definitely difficult. And our egos are very, very powerful stuff. So it's
Maybe I'll just add just a point on what the example that Asen gave there and what you also just said now. So you realize that in that game that we did, we were asking, like Asen said, people to challenge their own thinking, their beliefs and everything. And an interesting observation was that some people were actually now trying to make others believe what they believe in, to say, you are wrong, this is what is right, you must come and stand here, But so basically to say that people, like you rightly said, it's difficult sometimes to challenge your own thinking, and you feel like this is what is right and I'm going to stick to it, and this is my position, and everyone else must actually stand by me, Yeah.
Yeah, we have our identity very secured in some things, right? It can be very difficult to break that. Well, Dr. Frew, want to share?
I think Ashley wanted to speak long time ago, but she hasn't had the chance.
Yeah, would you like to jump in, Ashley?
Did I? I think I don't know. I don't think so. I'm just listening
Oh,
to everyone.
okay. Then I can go ahead then.
Yeah, if
Now
it comes back to something.
my contribution resonates from the conversation we had with respect to community engagement, where we said if we want to go for community engagement, we need to bring the different systems together. And it also resonates with this diagram that you just shared that Asen was drawing an example from, like looking at that peak, you see that people have different perspectives with respect to that peak. So let's take, for instance, a one system change thinker might act on that peak based on his or her own perspective of that peak, while the veterinary person will be looking at the pig as being a patient, the other person is looking at it as food. Now, if all the systems come together and sit and discuss about that peak, they're going to have a different perspective and a unified solution for that peak rather than one person trying to find a solution. So, at the end of the day, if we want to come up with a concrete solution for a particular situation, then we need to bring all the systems together so that particular diagram summarizes a conversation we had about community engagement and seeking for solutions for a particular community.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, I think it's essential, and then the the influence and the importance of having a good facilitator in these spaces is crucial, because at the moment that someone comes and says, no, this is food, and the other one says, no, it's a patient, then you're set up for arguments and for long discussions and so forth. And it's important to have that space safe so people can participate even though they carry completely different perspectives, and having that conversation and collecting some type of a common ground and establishing that common ground. And so then some other things can follow it. So I hear you 100%. And yes, that's tough. That's definitely tough. But yeah, that should be, I think, one of the first steps in bringing people together, because once we overcome that part of you're right and you're wrong and I'm right and so forth, then as you're saying, the potential of bringing all these different perspectives together is it's through the roof. Like no one can really stop loads of different people coming together towards a collective vision. But it needs the space to do that, which that's why having a good strong facilitator to set up the stage is key, right? To allow these people to come together without much friction, necessary friction, but not too much that will stop the movement. Very good things there, Fru. Thank you. Great. So we are 1 minute to the end of the hour. Any last thoughts, comments, anything that you didn't have the opportunity to share that you think you just want to say it, right? Just say it out.
Well, I just wanted to say I enjoyed the session, Yasmin. It was more practical to me because it made me reflect on the work that I do, and thank you so much.
No worries.
Yeah, I would also say the same. Really, there are things that we do sometimes unconsciously, But then when you think about it now that we're having the conversation, then you'll be like, oh, wow, this is what I was actually doing that time. So yeah, it is really interesting for me, especially connecting with what I've been doing on the ground. Yeah.
Oh, it's great to hear. And yeah, thank you all for participating and yeah, creating this space together, co-creating this space. So very good to have another one of these community gatherings here. And we have another one coming, which I'm gonna put the link here in the chat. And this is the one we're talking about evaluation and assessment and system change. So yeah, big topics, everyone. We don't play it lightly in this space. Go for it. So yes, hope to see you then on July the 16th, and wish you a great evening and great morning, depending on where you are.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Yasmin.
Thank
I also
you.
wanted to say before we go, for in preparation for the next session, for those who need resources, if you feel like, because I know we're just talking about systems change. I mean, some of us are new, many of us are new here in, it's like kind of new. So if you feel like you need some resources to read before the next session, please feel free to text Yasmin directly or myself or Linda on the platform, and we can always share some resources, even videos.
Yeah, and if you have anything to share with us as well, we're more than happy to have it. Cool. All right. Well, see you then, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.